Hello there. I thought that I would share with you an approach to honing or refreshing a smiling edge. You can see that edge, it's got a pretty good smile to it. This is my J.R. Tory with the paddock scales. The last time I shaved with it, it shaved pretty good, but I had refreshed it a bit on some Chrome Ox because I tested it before I shaved with it because I couldn't remember whether I've got 20 some razors, and sometimes it's hard for me to remember the last time I shaved with one and what it felt like. But I have a habit of kind of testing them with a hanging hair test before I start trying to shave with them, so that I can determine whether or not they need a bit of refreshing or something like that before I shave with them, or whether I need to take them back to a stone. The last shave I got was pretty good, but like I said, I used a Chrome Ox. Now you can also see that I've got black hash marks all along that edge, and the reason is that I want to see whether or not I'm honing the whole edge. Now, I generally just put a line down like that, but if you do that, the felt gets along the edge of the razor and can damage or dull the edge. No big deal if you're going down down progressions, but if I just want to refresh, I don't really want to damage that edge any more than it already is. I want to bring it back. So that's the reason I use the hash marks there instead of the straight line. So what we're going to do, I got my Shobu here, and I've got off to the side, I have some water, and this is a cup that I use to soak my brushes in, and I also use it to clean out fountain pens. I use it obviously for this. So I'm going to put some water on the Shobu, and I'm going to take my diamond plate, and I'm going to put a little water on that because I've found that works a lot better when I'm trying to raise a slurry. And I'm going to raise me a slurry here. And I'm not trying to get a really thick slurry. So what I'm going to do, when I get that slurry, and that's all the slurry I'm looking for, I'm going to dilute just a tad. And now with a smiling blade, a lot of times you can do this kind of angle and pick up the whole blade. I'm looking at that right now. What I'm going to do, no pressure, none whatsoever, just whatever it takes to keep the blade in contact with the hone. And let me go get my loop, because that's one of the things that I forgot to lay out when I started to do this video. And I'm going to look closely and see what's happening with this edge. Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it's hitting everywhere but right here at the heel and right here at the toe. So this is going to require a bit of refinement. So the first thing that I would try is something like that. Not a rolling stroke, just a stroke like this, just to see if I move the razor along this edge like this, will I get any better of a contact there, and I can already see that at least on this side of the blade, my loop again, I'm contacting all the way from heel to toe, but on this side I think I'm hitting the heel, but I think I'm missing the toe. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this just a bit more and see if that resolves itself. If not, what I'll have to do is either do a bit of a lift on this side when I go to hone on that edge, or I'll need to set this down and do one of these numbers. And I don't need to add a lot of pressure doing that. It should still hone up pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift, because I like to use as light of pressure as I can get away with when I am refreshing the razor, and a lot of times, period, when I'm honing, I prefer that. So with some decent light, I can see that I'm starting to hit that toe. Yeah, on this side, with just a little bit of pressure on the toe as I come forward, you know, kind of that kind of deal. I'm not really lifting up off the stone, but I'm putting, when I get toward about the middle of the way, I begin to add a little pressure toward the heel with my hand, just the hand that I'm honing with. The other side, alright, I have lost a lot of my slurry, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, that's something you need to understand. You know, you can always build more slurry up on a stone. The biggest thing is you got to make sure that you keep the water, you keep that stone moist. Don't let it dry out if it does. And this is what I'm doing. It's not really, I'm not really doing a rolling X. I'm just controlling pressure at the tip, at the toe of this razor. So that everything is hit. And now, if you look, let me, I don't want to wipe too much, because I'll wipe that when it's wet like that. A lot of times that permanent marker will come off with steel. But if you look, it's contacting all the way across. On both sides. That's what I'm looking for. Because you know, it won't be any good to me to try to refresh this razor if I'm not getting the whole edge. And generally when I do a refresh, I'll do a few laps, and I don't really count, but I might. At one point, I might do 20 or 30. With very light pressure. And then I'll put a few drops of water. And I dilute from the start. I don't. When I'm doing a progression, say I've come off of synthetics, off of a 3K, 4K, or I come off a bevel setter, particularly with a bevel setter, I might generate like a medium thick slurry and work that for 10 minutes or so before I start diluting. But with a refresh, I'm not trying to remove a lot of scratches. The bevel should be fairly polished. I'm just trying to bring that edge back. So I'll just dilute until I get to plain water or close to plain water. And then I'll go with the plain water for however long I think it needs to go. And that'll have to do with feel. But I love this Shobu. It's a really versatile stone. I was a guy, I forget his name. He was looking for some mid-range stones, and he didn't have a lot of money. And I commented, look, get you a Shobu. And you can go from bevel set. You can go from a bevel set stone right to the Shobu and go all the way up to finish. Now, Joni Shaw commented, yeah, he'd done it, but he didn't like the results as much as other methods. But I think that's going to depend on what your expectations are for one, and how you work the stone. And to be honest, every stone, particularly a natural stone, is a bit different, and it requires the user to learn it. And the more you do, the better an edge you're going to get, period. And so what I would say is that with this Shobu, because I do it all the time, I go off of my King 1K or my Suhiro 1200 or the Suhiro 1K I have, all straight from that to this Shobu and get great edges. But it takes time. The more you shade, the more you hone with a particular stone, the better you get with it. Which is one thing I would say I see a lot. And look, I'm guilty of it. I've got a lot of stones, and I play around with them all. And some of them give quicker results than others. And a lot of times beginners do like we do in every part of shaving. They blow money on a ton of stones, and they never settle down with one and learn it well enough. And then they get frustrated because they can't seem to get a decent edge or one that they like. And I would say when you first start honing, pick one stone or one set of progressions, like 1K, 3K, 5K, 8K, 12K. And stay with it until you start getting really good edges off of that system, that progression, that stone. And then go and try another. That's one thing I think that served me well. I went to lapping film. Lapping film is where I started getting really fine edges. But I went to lapping film, and I used lapping film for quite a while. And I got to where I knew and understood how to get an edge from the lapping film. A fantastic, an edge that would make my whiskers scream and run away. Just really a nice edge. And although every stone is different, there was an understanding that was part of honing with lapping film that carried me through to other methods. It carried over, and I knew more what I was looking for, what to watch out for, that kind of thing, when I moved over to synthetic stones. And it's helped me with the conical, with this Shobu, to get an edge, get the same kind of edge, and in terms of cutting ability and there's different, they all feel a bit different. The edge off this Shobu is going to feel different than the edge off of lapping film, and it's going to feel different than the edge off of, say, a conical, and it's going to feel different than the edge off of another Japanese stone. You know, so I'm not saying that all the edges are the same, but I'm getting the best quality and the best potential that I think I'm able to out of each stone. But now it's normal and kind of part of honing to see if you can push that even farther, and you ought to strive for more edge, better edge, different ways of doing things, that kind of deal. That's the way that you learn. Now, I'm pretty much at plain water, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the sink and I'm going to rinse the razor and the stone and come with clean water only. I'm also going to dump this water, because there's residue, slurry residue in that, and I want clean. And I'm going to go, well, that's lovely. Nice edge. Alright, and I'm going to go clean water. And you just do, everybody finds their own rhythm and finds what works for them. A lot of people say, well, when the stone gets sticky, but in my experience, that, and understand that I am still a noob. There are guys out there that say things like that know a whole lot more than I do, but it's always been my experience, at least with this stone and my conical, that the razor almost starts getting sticky as soon as I get close to clear water, or if I try to hone to refresh or to polish on clear water, it's immediately sticky as soon as I get clear water. So I'm not so sure it's a property of the stone and how close you are to a sharp shave ready edge as it is just a property of the stone in general, that when you have a slurry, there's a different feel than when you have water, and the water, I pick up more of that suctiony type of feel on the stone. So I'm still feeling for that, and I'm still trying to see, and I do get it more as I hone on this clean water, but I'm still not convinced that suction has anything to do with the edge being ready, and is not more a property of the stone itself under different media like oil or water or slurry. So, but that's just me. I tend to question stuff that's known supposedly as, well, this is how things are. Well, I tend to question that a lot. Well, is it? And go with my own experience. And the thing of it is, you know, in my opinion, honing, look, I can learn a lot, and I have learned a lot from guys that have been doing it longer than I have, and I really appreciate all the help and the advice and the information that's out there. There's so much out now that we didn't have before. You know, used to be when you wanted to learn to hone a razor, you got a cuticle or you got some kind of stone, and you had just very little rudimentary guidance, and you toughed it out until you figured out what was going on there. But there's so much of a wealth of information out there now that wasn't available, and that's good, because if you want to start honing and learning to hone, man, you've got so many resources. But the thing of it is none of that will ever replace your own instinct and your own feel for the stone and your own observations about what's going on between steel and stone. And that's the deal. So, you know, when I say things like that, I'm not saying anybody's got anything wrong. I'm just saying that my observations, what's going on with me when I hone, what I see with my own eyes and feel in my own hands, and what I get off the edges of my razors trumps any other kind of knowledge that's out there. You know, we have a tendency as a society, you know, we want to pick something to death and learn every single thing about it before we jump in. And the thing of it is there's so much stuff out there about almost anything that you want to learn to do that you could spend years just reading the information about it. A lot of times you'll learn a lot faster and you'll be a lot better off if you just jump on in. Jump off the deep end and pay attention to what's going on as you attempt something. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this edge, because what I want to see is a consistent, smooth bevel that's got the same kind of polish from heel to toe. And if it doesn't, then I'm not hitting certain areas of that edge, and I need to I love the look, the hazy, foggy kind of look that a Shobu puts on an edge. Just absolutely beautiful. And I am hitting every little bit of that edge. That's good. I want to go just a little bit more. And keep in mind, once again, very little, no pressure, just enough to keep that edge in complete contact with the stone throughout the whole range of motion. And like I say, this is a smiling blade, and all I've really had to do to pick up this whole edge is that kind of stroke. I've seen guys that do some kind of stuff like that, and they say that's supposed to be something that'll catch the whole edge. I'm going to try. I've not really tried that a whole lot. Let's try that and just see what the difference is. There, I lifted the spine up just a little. Hopefully I can do a few corrective strokes like this and it won't hurt it any. And let me check. Oh no, no problem whatsoever. So this razor is about done. Pretty much I'm going to strap her up and see what I get. Should be good. Alright, that's refreshing, a smiling razor. I hope it helped. God bless you, and I'll talk to you later.